Hello everyone. Today we will discuss a very important and an interesting lecture from the history of English literature. You might have learned from your teachers or you might have read in books when you were a high school student, college or at university that there were some Germanic tribes such as Angles, Saxon and Jude. They invaded Britain in 449 and settled in different parts of Britain. This invasion did not take place in a day or in a year, but took decades. But when we study the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, which was recorded in the time of Alfred the Great when he was ruling like in the south of England, Wessex, right? So he recorded or he compiled this Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, which says that there was no invasion. So here is a question that did the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle hide the invasion? Was it written for a political purpose, to give an identity, to create an identity or a nationhood to this Britain, England? Or in reality there was no invasion? Because when we refer to the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, so we know that there was migration from from Denmark, right, and from Germany, what is now Germany today, right, from France. And these settlers, they settled in different parts of Britain and they were invited. Okay, not all of them. Some of the soldiers were invited to defend Britain against the Picts who were living in the north of Britain, what is now today Scotland. So we will uncover this story today, whether there was invasion or not, there was migration. So we will refer to the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. Let's start and learn today's this interesting lecture. Here you can see a picture. Okay, this is a created one, right? Now, the Chronicle tells a peaceful start of England. So what is a peaceful start? Migration, no invasion. When we refer to the Chronicle, Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, as we talked about here, right? This one, Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. So we know that there was a peaceful start, not the start like a movie or like a film. Okay, we see in different books that was taught to us when we were the students of BS or MA English or when we were students of high school, right? So it was taught to us that there was invasion in 449. But when we refer to the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, we come to know that there was no invasion. There was a peaceful start. And these soldiers, Germanic tribes, they were invited to defend the Britain against the Picts. And later on, they settled in Britain. And they also invited their families, okay, and there were a lot number of these tribes who were living in Britain. So there was a peaceful start. Right? So Germanic warriors invited by the Britons to fight the Picts. Fine. And then more settlers came to Britain and they settled there. And then what happened later on, that kingdoms rose when more settlers from these Germanic tribes, they arrived to Britain. Then what happened? There was conflict between these Anglo-Saxons and the native people of Britain, which were Celtic people, right? Now you can see this map which shows invasion of England, but actually that according to this Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, there was no invasion. So again, here is a question that is raised, that did the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle hide the invasion? Was there any invasion or there was no invasion? Was this chronicle recorded? It was written in the time of Alfred the Great to give a sense of unity, identity, nationhood to England. So, was it written for a purpose, or in fact there was no invasion? It's just a big question, right? Now, next. So, Saxon migration, that is in 5th century, according to Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. This is a picture. Now, here the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle are window to the early history, but what if it never actually describe an invasion? This is a question, right? Because we do not find any invasion in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. Now, the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle is often viewed as an early record of English history, but it doesn't describe a dramatic invasion as we hear, we see in movies, sometimes also in books. Okay, there were some Germanic tribes, and they had weapons, they attacked Britain, they defeated Britain, and they settled here. So we do not find such kind of invasion in Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. Rather, it says migration. Instead, it presents a legendary migration story shaped by political motives in the 9th century, especially during King Alfred's the reign. So during when King Alfred he was ruling over England, the south part of England, that was Wessex. So in his time, okay, this Anglo-Saxon Chronicle was recorded. It was compiled. So modern historians like Nicholas Haggams and Francis Prayers and Ian Wood argue that what the chronicle reflects myth making, identity buildings, not factual history. So there is question, what if it is a myth and making an identity building? Okay, because there were Danish invasion in Alfred the Great time, and he wanted to see the different parts of Britain unite. Right, so maybe for a purpose, for a political purpose, to give a sense of unity to the people of Britain. So he composed and he compiled in his time. This Anglo-Saxon Chronicle was compiled. So modern historian like Nicholas Haggam and we have Francis Pryor and Ian Wood argue that the chronicle reflects myth making, the identity building, not factual history. So archaeological and textual evidence supports the idea of gradual settlement, not a mass military invasion. So according to archaeological and textual, according to this evidence, there was no invasion. And there was settlement, right? And the settlement took place gradually, not abruptly. So if there was gradual, so it means there was no invasion. Gradually, these people who were coming from the north part of Europe, like from Germany, from Denmark, okay, from Norway, and they settled in different parts of Britain. Now, the myth begins where the chronicle tells of a peaceful start. Fine, and Germanic warriors invited by the Britons to fight the Picts because the Britons were in trouble. And when the Roman soldiers, right, the Roman soldiers went out from the Britain, or the Roman Empire withdrew their soldiers from the Britain. So what happened that from the northern part of England, what is now Scotland, the people who were living there, they were called Picts. They attacked. They were fierce people, fair tribes were there. And these fair tribes attacked the Britain. So to defend themselves, the Britons requested and invited soldiers from Germany, right, from these northern parts of the Europe, like from Denmark, Germany, okay, these countries are now, and the conflict followed, and then kingdom rose. Where? In Britain. Fine. So this is okay, that what Anglo-Saxon Chronicle says. But wait, is that history? Is a question again. Now, compiled under King Alfred the 9th century, because he was ruling the England, Wessex in the 9th century. So the chronicle wasn't just a record, it was a tool, right? So Alfred needed unity among warring tribes and enter the Anglo-Saxon identity. And he gave this identity to Anglo-Saxon, and he wanted to have a rich heritage of the Britain. Right? There should be some historical background of the Britain. So he, you see, promoted education, you see, literacy. He did a lot of work in his reign. So they say, critics say that this Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, which was compiled under the King Alfred the Great time in the 9th century, the chronicle wasn't just a record, it was a tool. A tool of what? To give a sense of unity and to to make a peaceful and like harmony within the Britain. So Alfred needed unity among warring tribes and entered the Anglo-Saxon identity. So here the history of the Britain begins. So a great and a big question is there, that was it created? Was it compiled for a purpose? Because we know that history is written from the mouth of the ruler, right? So King Alfred, he was ruling the England. He was a very powerful king. So might be that from his mouth we know that there was a peaceful start of the Britain, right? So this was a question. You can see in this picture that Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, and in the time of King Alfred the Great, it was compiled. Now, a political brain. History says that for a political purpose, this Anglo-Saxon Chronicle was recorded, compiled. So the words Anglo-Saxon stamp onto the screen like a propaganda. So the term Anglo-Saxon did not exist before the compilation of this Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. This name was given to them in the time of Alfred the Great, King Alfred the Great. So the royal scribe pen sticks under touchlight. So the people or the scholars were written. They given this name Anglo-Saxon that time. The term Anglo-Saxon likely took shape under Alfred the Great time. It wasn't used in the 5th century. It was a 9th century political brand. So this Anglo-Saxon, it is a political brain which was invented in the 9th century, not in the 5th century, because in the 5th century there was no such name as Anglo-Saxon. It was invented in the 9th century in the time of King Alfred the Great. Now you can see an image of Alfred the Great, and here is his statue, right? So Alfred the Great, King of Wessex, southern England in 9th century. A historical moment. Now some more detail, that compilation of Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. Alfred commissioned this historical record to document the history and achievement of Anglo-Saxon people, fostering a shared narrative. So the narrative which was not shared before King Alfred the Great, and in his time he shared constructed, according to this page, a shared narrative. And he recorded what? The stories of Anglo-Saxon in this Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. As we can see here, historical record to document the history and achievements of Anglo-Saxon in this chronicle. So educational reforms, because I mentioned that he was one of the great king of England, Britain. He promoted the use of Old English in education and legal matter, making knowledge more accessible and unifying the language. He stressed the people to use English, Old English in his time. Now, military reorganization. Alfred established a network of fortified towns and restructured the army and enhanced a collective defense against Viking invasion, the Anglo-Saxon. Right? Now, legal reforms. He codified laws and combined traditional custom with Christian principles, promoting a unifying legal framework. So these initiatives collectively strengthen the sense of a unified Anglo-Saxon identity under Alfred's leadership. So now he's, as I told you, that he's giving them like a unified identity, a sense of nationhood. And he's telling, okay, there was a peaceful start. Fine. Now, what about the evidence? Now, modern scholars and archaeologists find little evidence of a mass invasion, no destruction layers, no Roman reports of conquest. So we do not know there was invasion according to this Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, right? As well as from the archaeological point of view, we do not find any evidence of a mass invasions and no destruction we can find, okay, that there was destruction in Britain when they invaded the Germanic tribes, and no Roman reports of conquest we find, okay, that there was invasion. Migration, not invasion. So most of the historians, and according to when we refer to Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, so we find there was migration. And migration was on the request and invitation of the people of Britain. To whom? To these Germanic soldiers, tribes. And they came and they asked him to defend them against the Picts who were living in the north of England, what is now Scotland. So migration, not invasion. The truth likely that a gradual migration was there, with settlers blending in, not conquering outright. So there was no conquer, right? There was no victory. There was no invasion. There was no bloodshed. There was no weapons. There was no fight, but there was migration according to most of historians, right? But some of them, like Nicholas, he says, okay, that it might be created for a purpose, to give a sense of unity to the people of Britain. Fine. Now, next one. So, was it a lie that there was invasion in 449? It's a question. Not a lie. Just a carefully crafted origin story. Some of the historians might say it was not a lie, but it was a carefully crafted origin story, one meant to inspire unity, not document fact. So we don't have a documented fact, because even this Anglo-Saxon Chronicle was compiled after centuries when Anglo-Saxon they arrived in the 5th century. So there was a gap, 5th century, then 6, 7, 8, 9, almost 3 or 4 centuries later on, or this record was compiled. So who know what is fact? So might be the story was also crafted in the time of Alfred the Great. Historical context. Again, we can see the image of Alfred the Great. In the late 9th century, King Alfred the Great of Wessex faced the daunting task of uniting various English kingdoms against the threat of Viking invasion. So this could be one of the reason, okay, that why did he write Anglo-Saxon Chronicle? Because there was constant threats from the Viking. They were attacking the England. So he wanted to unite the different parts of Britain, different kingdoms of Britain. That's why this Anglo-Saxon Chronicle was compiled. So to foster unity among these diverse and often varying tribes, Alfred promoted the concept of a shared identity. Thus, he gave a shared identity. And sometimes we find in this historical context evidence that Saxon, they lived before the migration of these Germanic tribes. Saxon were the people or the inhabitants of Britain, right? Native people of Britain. The Chronicle as a tool. Alfred commissioned the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, a historical record written in Old English to document the history and achievement of Anglo-Saxon people. So it might be used as a tool. So this wasn't merely a record of events, it was a deliberate effort to cultivate a sense of common heritage and purpose among the English people. So for a purpose, this Anglo-Saxon record was compiled to give a sense of unity and to create like a common heritage for the people of Britain. Unity over accuracy. So he preferred unity over accuracy. Who? Alfred the Great. King Alfred had a political and cultural goal. What was that? He wanted to unite the English tribes who often fought one another so they could stand together against the Viking threat. So for this purpose, okay, did he prefer unity or accuracy? So we might not have accurate history that was documented in Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, but he wanted to create this fact, okay, twisted fact, molded fact to unite the different and diverse group of England. So to do this, he needed people to see themselves not as separate tribes, Saxon, Angles, Jude, but as one people, Anglo-Saxon. That's why he wanted to see them Anglo-Saxon, not like Saxon, Angles, Jude, different tribes. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle doesn't provide clear evidence of dramatic invasion of Britain by the Anglo-Saxon as it is often portrayed in later stories. Fine. So instead, it presents a story of migration and settlement over time, while the Chronicle talks about the arrival of different Anglo-Saxon groups. The idea of a sudden large-scale invasion is more of a later myth. So we do not find this invasion in Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, but we can see them later on. The Nicholas Hegum, right, historian. So modern historians such as Nicholas Hegum argue that the Anglo-Saxon may have already been living in Britain before the traditional story of invasion is said to have occurred. He said there might be that the people, or what we refer to Anglo-Saxon, might be they were living, okay, before what we call Anglo-Saxon invasion. You can see that Anglo-Saxon may have already been living in Britain before the traditional story that was created, okay, they invaded. So archaeological and historical evidence suggests that the Anglo-Saxon gradually settled in Britain over several centuries rather than invading it at once, right? So they settled there. They did not invade it all at once. The Chronicle itself written centuries after the supposed invasion, because invasion, when we say they invaded the Germanic tribe, that was 449, middle of 5th century, while the Chronicle, Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, was compiled in 9th century, so after 300 and 400 years later on. So might reflect a political motive at time and especially under King Alfred, who wanted to strengthen the idea of Anglo-Saxon identity and heritage. So this suggests that what we read in the Chronicle might be more about building a national myth rather than telling the factual history of how the Anglo-Saxon came to live in Britain. So this might not be truth, okay, that how came to Britain, but it was a nation building myth, okay, to give them a sense of unity that we are a nation. So for this purpose it was created, historian says. So the evidence point to the idea that the Anglo-Saxons lived in Britain long before the story of dramatic invasion became popular, and their settlement was likely gradual. So we can say that the Anglo-Saxons lived in Britain long before the story of dramatic invasion became popular, because this dramatic invasion of the Anglo-Saxons, they invaded England later on. But before this story, perhaps they were living where? In Britain. And their settlement was likely gradual, not suddenly. Gradual mean it took centuries when they arrived to Britain and then they settled there. Different parts of this northern Europe. The final message that history isn't just about what happened. It's about how we choose to remember it. This is the great message. That history isn't about just what happened. We do not write. So the history is all the time written from the perspective of the rulers, from those who are in power. History isn't just about what happened, it's about how we choose to remember it. So Alfred the Great wanted to remember the people of Britain in such and such way. That's why that he compiled and recorded the history of Anglo-Saxon in this like we can say book, the Chronicle of Anglo-Saxon or Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. So he chose that he wanted to remember the people of Britain in such and such way, to give them unity or to give them heritage, okay, to give them a peaceful beginning rather than that is full of bloodshed, that is full of like fighting, killing each other, not such a way. So thank you so much. Please do provide your valuable comment about this very interesting lecture. It's still debatable, okay, it's not the lecture has no end, okay, that if you comment, so I'll answer, and you see that we can have so many different, we can provide so many different arguments and we can debate on this story, whether they invaded, they came peacefully, they lived before this story or not. So thank you so much. Please do provide valuable insight and comment.